Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Berryman here. How you guys doing today on wonderful Wednesday? Another great day to be alive. And today is another awesome live stream for Conversations for Humanity. Welcome, everyone, to our Bringing Humanity Together live stream. I am Chris Berryman, founder and coalition builder of Bringing Humanity Together. This is one of the three open forums under the Bringing Humanity Together umbrella. I'm tongue-tied today, where people can discuss topics related to the workplace, humanity in the workplace, in a very positive and constructive way. We want to know what the issues are that are out there that are facing people today, and it's our goal to both work with the employees and employers and bring humanity into the workforce. We always will be going live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all at 3 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, except for Conversations for Humanity. We actually have a meet and greet from 2:45 to 3. And remember, always, every Tuesday, Share and Care with Sandy. That's always on Tuesdays. I host Conversations for Humanity, and you might even see a special guest. You never know. And then Thursdays always is hosted by none other than our great partner, too, as well, Carla, Fedigan, and Humanity Happy Hour. And there might even be a 19th hole in there somewhere. So as you jump on, whether it be on YouTube or on our Twitter page or also here on LinkedIn, we would love to hear from you where you're actually watching us from, either live or on the replay. So when you see the replay, use the hashtag replay, and we would love to connect with you and have great and engaging conversations. Please put forth any questions or topics or anything that be value to the conversation, because we would love to hear from you. So if you guys want to join, I will put the link up here in just a couple of minutes. And today's call is going to be in the realm of the power of intent. And that's what we'll be discussing today. So we're going to be waiting for people to be jumping on today. So just follow us on our Twitter page at Betterment for All. Here's the link that you can join us live at, and I will put that on the LinkedIn and YouTube channels, so you can follow join in there, and then follow us here on our business page on LinkedIn. And we even have a community here on LinkedIn too as well, and also we have a Facebook group. So please join us on our Facebook group too as well. We would love to hear from you. So I will put that in the chat on LinkedIn and also on YouTube here in just a minute. So I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear where you're calling in from or watching in from, and we would love to have that great and engaging conversation with you. And here's my great partner, Sandy Chernoff. How you doing,
Chris.
Sandy?
Good. Just having trouble getting on, Chris.
Well, you know how technology goes. It works sometimes, and it don't work sometimes. That's the nature of technology.
I know. I was having trouble finding the right link.
Well, that's okay, because you found your way here. So that's okay. So Sandy, today what we'll be talking about is the power of intent, and what does that look like to us and mean to us, and how that truly shapes our world and everything. So that's what we'll be talking about today, is the power of intent. So how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's been busy. I've been up since about 5:45.
That's early.
Yep. But I got a lot of things done. I work out for an hour, Chris. So I do that, and then I shower, and then I came downstairs and made a ground chicken casserole, and then I baked cookies.
Yeah, I love cookies. I love cookies.
And then I had my breakfast, and then I dealt with emails and so on and so forth. And now I'm reading a book that a friend of mine from kindergarten that I've known literally since we were 5 years old wrote a book that's called Two Pieces of Cloth, and it's his family story of the Holocaust and what his family went through and how many families died in the Holocaust and what happened with his family. And I've known Joe literally, I mean, we were in kindergarten together, And the pictures in here are very interesting because he looks exactly like his father. So he has a older
Wow.
brother and a younger sister. He's the middle child, and I knew the whole family. Both the parents are dead now, but both the boys were married. Actually, Joe's first wife died of cancer, but he married a very lovely woman for his second wife. And his older brother lives in Israel, and his sister lives in Vancouver, and she's married and has kids. And both of them, their kids are, married and have kids of their own. So, the family has grown exponentially with all the grandchildren. And one of the times that we were in Israel, we saw Joe's brother because he lives in the same neighborhood as very close friends of ours. So I hadn't seen Andy for years. And Neil said that one of the times he went, he actually ended up staying at Andy's house, which is
Uh-huh.
really
That's amazing.
well, it's funny, Chris. The first time I went to Israel, I went with a classmate of mine from dental hygiene school. And
Right.
her parents were a little nervous about this because we were there about 6 months after the 6 Day War. Not
Right.
even, we were there about a month after the 6 Day War. So they were a little nervous. But Janice and I had a wonderful time. We hitchhiked everywhere. We got rides
Oh
with
man.
we got rides with Israeli soldiers. And the other thing we did is we bought army fatigue. So we were wearing army uniforms. So we actually went to the Kennedy Memorial, which at that time was outside of Jerusalem. So the bus didn't go quite that far. So you had to get off the bus and walk. And it was the summer. It was like 40 degrees Celsius. I'm not kidding you, Chris. So we went to the memorial. It was very nice. It's on a hill. It was lovely. And I said to Janice, we are not walking back. She says, what are you talking about? I said, leave it to me. So we went out on the road and along comes a bus. So I go out in the middle of the road and I go like this, Chris.
Right.
And the bus stopped. And Janice is looking at me like I'm completely crazy. And I get on the bus and I said, excuse me, I was just wondering if you could give us a ride back to the city. So it was a bus full of American businessmen. Can you believe this? So they said, okay, kiss the bus driver and you can have a ride. So I brought Janice on the bus. The two of us kissed the bus driver and they drove us back to Jerusalem. It was really funny. But we hitchhiked everywhere, all over the country. And it was really fun and it was really interesting. I mean, we went down south, we went to the Negev, we hiked up some of the mountains down there, and you have to do it very early in the morning, of course, because it's so hot. And she just loved it. I mean, she had such a good time, and I had friends there. And what surprised Janice the most was we'd be walking down the street, and I'd be running into people that I knew, Chris. And she'd say to me, we're 10,000 miles away from home. How can you know people here? But what happened was that after the 6 Day War, Canadian and American kids and European kids came to Israel to help, to work in businesses and help out with things because most of the young people were in the army. So, people needed people to work in the stores and, do different things. And because I'd gone to summer camp in different places, I knew kids from all over the States and Canada. And so it was funny, we'd walk down the street and I'd go, hi, how are you doing? And Janice was just standing there like, what? Also, she was blonde and we were in the old city and some Arab came up to us and he said to Janice, you need to get a hat and put your hair underneath your hat because somebody is going to kidnap you and put you in a harem. Well, because she was blonde. So, she cracked up. She thought I was really hysterical, but we did get her a hat and had her pile of hair up inside the hat. But it was such an interesting time also to be in Israel because there were all these UN people there and, so on and so forth, because they were trying to put things back together after the 6 Day War. And it was fascinating. I think I told you this, Chris. I wrote my grandfather a letter when we were at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, and I wrote
Right.
him. And when my grandfather died and I was going through some of his stuff with my aunt, I found the letter, Chris. He saved the letter that I wrote to him.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, I told him how emotional it was to be at the Wailing Wall because people put notes in the wall and it's just, plus there are only areas where women can be. because it was very orthodox there. So men can be anywhere, but there were only certain sections where women could be. And just different kinds of things. But it was such an emotional experience to be there because of the history,
Yeah.
and because it's what's left of the original temple. And it's just, I mean, Israel is an amazing place, because the other thing about it that's so incredible is, most of the technology we have was developed in Israel.
Right.
Microsoft has a huge development place there, and everybody had cell phones, even way back then.
Yeah.
And it was just, you're kind of wandering around, and what are all these people doing? And what have they got? It was so incredible. And we were supposed to go to Turkey after Israel. But while we were in Israel, there was an earthquake in Turkey, and things were just a mess. So instead, we flew straight to France. We didn't go to Turkey that trip. But it was just so fascinating. It really was. And Janice loved it. I mean, she just couldn't get over it, because, of course, it's the core of the Muslim religion, the Jewish religion, and the Christian religion. And we visited all those sites. And it was it was amazing. It really
the Temple
was.
Mount and all that.
Yeah, everything. And, and again, I had cousins who lived outside of Tel Aviv, and I had some very, very good friends who lived in Jerusalem. And we visited them, and, they were very nice to Janice and everything. And she just couldn't believe how friendly the people were, because people would invite you home for dinner, and, it's just not kidding you, Chris. On the bus, they'd say, "What are you girls doing for dinner?" You go, "What? Well, you want to come to our house?"
It's like, what? Dinner?
And
I'm in.
We stayed in a nunnery for a little while. And we kept coming back late at night, and they were all in bed because, they get up very early in the morning to pray. So finally, one day we came back, and our suitcases were on the front porch. They'd had enough of us coming in late. So we had to move and stay somewhere else. And so we went and stayed in a hostel. And it was so funny. Janice cracked up. I said, "Yeah, well, I guess they got tired of us ringing the bell at 10 o'clock at night when they were all sleeping." So, yeah.
The stories of Sandy Chernoff, Young Days edition.
You know what, Chris? It's interesting. When you are young, you do things that I didn't tell my mother some of the stories of what Janice and I did, the places that we went, and, certain things that we did, because she would have been horrified, because some of it was kind of dangerous, but when you're 19 years old, you don't think about those kinds of things. You just go and do stuff, right? I mean, I've been to Israel many times since then. I went with my mom a number of times, and Yale and I have been there a few times. And one of the times we also went to Egypt, and that was fascinating.
Oh, I'm sure.
We were on an Israeli bus, and when we got to the Egyptian border, we had to get off the Israeli bus and onto an Egyptian one. They wouldn't let the Israeli bus come into Egypt. It was very funny, but Cairo was just a fascinating city. We went to
I would love to go to Cairo. I would love to.
And, it was just, it was very, very interesting. And we were there for a few days, and then we went back to Israel. But it was just, we were very glad that we went, because we went to see the pyramids and, different kinds of things outside of the city. And it was fascinating. It really was. I would like to go back to Israel, and I would like to go to Jordan, because there are some interesting things in Jordan that I would like to see. And I actually mentored a Jordanian student who was studying at a school here in Vancouver, and we've stayed in touch. He now lives in Dubai, but he keeps telling me I should come to Jordan, and he'll come back and show me around.
Yeah.
His father is a diplomat, and his sister went to school in England, and he came to Vancouver and went to school. He's a very, very nice young man. Muslim, but lovely, lovely fellow. And we talked about the differences, and we don't I said to him, I don't understand why there's so much animosity. I mean, the truth is that in many ways we're very similar. They have halal and we have kosher. We have kashrut. Yeah. You know what, Chris? They're very similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really don't understand why there's so much conflict, and why there's But I've never been able to understand why people, like, look what happened in London. I mean, I'm sorry. What kind of nonsense is this that you run over a whole family with your bloody truck? What are you thinking? Just because they're wearing, garb that shows that they're Muslim? I'm sorry. I mean, this is just completely wrong. And the only one that survived is a 9-year-old kid, and he's got no family now. I mean, his parents and his sister and his grandmother were all killed. I'm sorry. This is just completely wrong.
And,
I mean,
and again, I get that. That's the travesty of humanity when people do the things that they do, and that's the thing that we always have to contend with. It's like when you get in the car, you
yeah,
know, you always take a chance on your life because you know you may or may not get hit. You may or may not get struck by lightning. You just don't know. But see, that's the power of value. If you value your life, you can take that in context and say, "Hey, I am going to outweigh the pros and cons of this. So, am I going to do this? Yes. And if I'm not going to do this, I won't do that." So that's the nature of how
they were just standing on the corner waiting for the light to change so they could cross the street. They were just out for a walk. That's what they were doing. And this young man, a 20-year-old man who apparently was a devout Christian, but had this hate thing on for Muslims. I don't know why. And actually, one of his friends that he worked with was astounded. He said, "I just can't believe he did this. It just doesn't seem like him at all." So he's not only been charged with 4 counts of murder and 1 charge of attempted murder, but he's also been charged with a terrorist act because they look at this as being a terrorist act. Just,
right.
20 years old, he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail, Chris. I mean,
I know. And see, that goes again to focus on the positivity side of things. We have a choice in the matter of how we dictate our lives.
Exactly.
Either we go down the negative path and become the very monsters we swore that we will never become, or we do something with our lives and choose to say, "Hey, I'm going to do what is right, not what is easy." And that goes right into the topic that we're talking about today about the power of intent.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, obviously he intended this because it wasn't, some wild thing. I mean, he went out and just ran them down. And the Muslim community in London are all just a wreck because a lot of them were interviewed and said, "Well, it could have been us. We also go out for walks and now we're afraid to do it." Well, that's terrible. I mean, it's just absolutely awful. And that's what it was like for the Jews. And in some places, it still is like that. And not only has, anti-Muslim stuff really stepped up lately, but anti-Semitism is back on the rise as well. And, there have been Jews beaten up in some of the American cities and stuff like this. It's because, they walk around wearing the kippah, so they know that they're Jewish. And it's so scary, Chris, because again, like, what are you doing? Why? What difference does it make? Leave them alone. They're not hurting you. They're not doing anything to you. So what kind of intent do you have that you're hurting other people? Why?
I know.
It just doesn't make any sense. I've never understood this. And I told you that before because I grew up with a grandfather who said, there are no bad boys and no bad girls. It's just, you just look at people and you look for the good in people. And if you're nice to them and see the good in them, then, you'll get the good back. It just, talk about intent. I mean, be nice to people. What is wrong with being nice to people?
Exactly. And see, when you use the power of intent for the purposes for good and doing the right thing and just saying, "Hey, I'm going to intend that this is going to be the outcome that I so seek," whether to be you're in your office and you're at work. This is what I'm going to do to frame my day. I'm going to intend to do this, that, and the other. But when it comes to the power of intent, there are people, especially I've seen it in the workplace for far too long, for over 35 years, that where people come into a job and it can be done from a different context and a different frame of mind because, like I said to you yesterday, if someone gets in a car accident, the whole day goes all the heck in a handbasket because their whole day is ruined. So that's a big hole to overcome to a certain degree on some levels. But then again, when you go into the power of intent and say, I am going to do this no matter what, and I'm going to do this because, see, that's an intentional act that you're doing, number one. Number two, that power of intent comes from the power of choice because you choose to do it in that very way. And that power of choice is truly powerful because intent and choice truly go hand in hand together. And then when you get outside of yourself to such a degree and say, this is the way that I am going to live my life. And I wish Brian was here again today because
Yeah, I
I
mean,
love his take on it about living the life that you love. And,
and again, Chris, I mean, if I see someone who, especially an older person, and, I'm going to cross the street and they look like they could need a hand. So I ask them, can I help you? Would you like to, hold my arm while we cross the street or something? Like, why wouldn't you? I mean, I just, I don't understand it. If somebody needs some help, I mean, I don't care if they're Chinese or black or East Indian. I really don't care at all. If
right,
somebody needs some help, I'm happy to, especially older people, I'm very happy to lend a hand. Why not? What the heck difference does it make? I don't care what color their skin is. It doesn't matter to me. It just really doesn't. If they haven't got, somebody to lean on and I'm standing right there, why wouldn't I help them? I mean, like it just, it doesn't
right,
make sense. You want them
right.
to fall down in the street and get run over by a car? I don't think so. You know, so
And,
and a lot of people are unsteady. They're out
right,
there
right.
and they're unsteady. Well, you want to make sure that they're going to be safe. Yes, they should be able to go out and have some fresh air and have a little walk or whatever. But if they're unsteady and they got to cross the street and the curb is, they trip on the curb, and that's not good.
Uh,
So, it's just a matter of, it's the same thing in business, Chris. Why wouldn't you want to help someone? I mean, why wouldn't you want to? If somebody's sort of overwhelmed and there's things that need to get done and they can't do it because they're so overwhelmed with what they're doing, why wouldn't you say, you want some help? Can I do that for you while you're doing this other thing? Like, why wouldn't you want to do that?
correct.
To me, it doesn't make any sense. And I think in organizations where you have that kind of teamwork and where people do look around to see what needs to be done. Again, if a manager is not busy and the floor needs to be swept and they pick up the broom and sweep the floor, other people are, whoa, look at that, the manager's sweeping the floor. Well, it was
Right,
something that needed to be done and he or she didn't have anything else to do at the moment, so they swept the floor. Big deal. But it sends a very strong message to the other people.
correct.
When something needs to be done, whoever is available is the person who should be doing it.
Correct.
And that's why you have to pay attention when you work with other people, when we are working together to accomplish certain things. If somebody can't get something done and it needs to be done, then somebody else needs to pick up the slack and take care of it. It's, again, this is not rocket science. It's just a matter of being practical and being helpful and being supportive and working as a team, because that's what teams do. They work together. It's called collaboration. And again, this is not so hard, but it's a matter of, if you work in a place where it's like that, then, it's just nice. Like I think I told you, even in the dental office, back in the day, now you have digital x-rays and stuff. So you don't need to do the, you don't need to process the films. But back in the day, we had to process the film. So, you took the film, then you had to take it into the dark room. And first you had to put it in the developer, then you had to rinse it and put it in the fixer. And, sometimes I just didn't have time to do that. So I would ask somebody, do you mind changing the films when the timer goes? Because I really can't leave the patient I'm working on and, whatever. And there was never a problem. Somebody else would do it for me. And when it was done, they'd bring me the films so that the dentist could look at them when they were doing the exam on the patient. And, it's just a matter of, why not help out? I mean, what difference does it make? I mean, sometimes I needed an extra hand when I was doing some kind of perio charting or whatever, and it's hard to chart and write and, whatever. So sometimes, I'd get somebody from the office. Sometimes it would even be a dentist, Chris. Didn't have a patient come over and do the charting. But again, it's just a matter of, what kind of relationships do you have with the people with whom you work? And what kind of a culture have we developed? Do we have a culture where everybody helps and looks out for everybody else and so on and
Mm-hmm.
so forth? And if we do, we're going to have a great place, because then people know that if they get into a jam, that somebody else will help them. Well, that's a really good feeling to have, to know that your colleagues are going to help you out and that you, in turn, would help your colleagues. And, when you have that kind of mindset and that kind of intent, it's a very different place to work than when you're just on your own. And if you have a problem, it's your problem. Too bad. Well, I'm sorry. That doesn't work very well. And it's not a very pleasant way to work. So it's a matter of what, like you say, what sort of intent do people have? Well, if they can look around and see that something needs to be done and everybody else is busy and you've got 5 minutes, so take care of it. How hard is that? It's just,
Right.
to me, it's common sense, but it's a matter of what are the examples? Who's leading the way, who is modeling the behaviors. And again, if especially if it's a manager or a leader and they pick up the slack sometimes, people are just, whoa, look at that, I guess I better pay attention next time, maybe I should do that, whatever. So as I said yesterday, talking the talk is one thing. Walking the walk is a whole different way of demonstrating to people what
Oh yeah.
behaviors you want them to have. And when leadership, actually steps up and does stuff that people are, oh, look at them doing that, then it sends a very strong message to everybody else that you should be paying attention to what needs to be done as well. And if you have a couple moments, then, roll up your sleeves and get busy. Again, it's not that hard. Like if in the dental office, if you had a cancellation, and sometimes that happens, Chris.
Right.
So for me, that would mean I had an hour with basically nothing to do. Okay. So the first thing I would do is go into the office to see if they needed charts pulled or charts filed, or if they were calling to confirm patients, or I'd go into the supply room to see if there was a list that hadn't been called yet. And then I would call the dental supply companies and, fill in the list, or else I'd ask, does anybody need a hand? Whatever. Because as a hygienist, I could do dental assisting if I needed to. I knew what to do. And, there's different things that need to be done sometimes. And if somebody needs a hand and you know what to do, which is why cross training in an office is very important, so that people have,
anywhere.
yeah, that they can pick up the slack because they also know what to do, even if it's not their usual job, whatever the heck that means. But it's just a matter of, how are you running your business? How are you running your practice? People like to feel useful. And, it always makes you feel good when you can help somebody else. Why not? Especially if you have nothing to do at the moment. It's better than just twiddling your thumbs.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I hate being bored. So I'd rather look for something to do.
Right. But like I say, when it comes to the power of intent, for me at least, Sandy, it has been really a journey for me because, see, when I was younger, I wasn't really intentional. I just was going with the flow, and I was only going to work for a paycheck, and I was about myself, and that's the way I looked the world as, hey, Chris is only going to be out for Chris, and that's it. But like I said, about 15 years ago, I had that kind of aha moment in which was of three of them, and actually I made that intentional, not just random. I made that intentional choice to say, you know what, I need to be working with people, not for people, because there's a huge difference, and I know that.
Absolutely.
And I just like, you know what, I just can't be doing that. I know there's a better way, but back then we didn't have the social media and all that kind of stuff we do today. It's like we don't know the people that we know now compared to what we did back then. So it's like a whole different ball game. So we got to do what we got to do today, you know. But you know what? Like I said, when I was a corporate recruiter in 2017 for a solar company in Lakeland here, and when I was asking candidates and applicants questions like this, and I was intentional about it, I wanted to say these things because I wanted to gain their reaction from it. Like, do you want to be a part of something bigger than yourself? Do you want to leave a living and lasting impact every day and every way? Do you want to help others and get them to where they need to go, not only in business, but maybe more importantly in life itself? And that was really intentional. And when I got the reactions from them, I'm like, wow, that's amazing to hear those kind of things because it's a truly powerful thing when you can impact somebody's life, even in an interview phase, to say, hey, man, this message is being sent loud and clear to me. Man, I need to probably think about that, you know. And like I said, then my third epiphany moment comes from none other than my wife, Melinda. And she keeps telling me day in and day out, I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of not having enough support or not having the wherewithal of other people recognizing that I'm swamped and they won't help or whatever the case may be. And working in a dental office, that's kind of hard because if you're swamped, you're swamped. That's just the way it goes. But when I heard that from her time and time again, a lot of days, I'm like, enough. And now I was so intentional of building this movement, passion, purpose, and calling of mine. And now it's turned into hours between me, you, and Caller, and many others to come. And say, you know what? There is a better way to bring humanity together. There is a better way to bring humanity into business and beyond it, because we're going to be intentional about it. Because the power of intention goes through so many dynamics. Like I said, through the power of positivity, the power of possibility, the power of creativity, because a lot of that stuff is interconnected to one another. Because you don't want to go into a job and just say it's just a job. Because, like I said, if it's not the purpose that you have been led to live, and going into, like Brian says, living the life that you love, if you don't enjoy that, then you got to find your not only your why, but find out your purpose. Find out what really drives you to do what you do. And maybe sometimes you have to make do what you got. We all have to do that. But you have to be intentional and say, hey, this is only going to be a stepping stone to a much greater thing. And we know, Sandy, me, you, and Carla, it's all agreed on. It's not going to be a matter of if this is going to get big. It's only going to be a matter of when, who jumps on board. Because we're going to be intentional about helping people each and every single day, because we know, number one, it's not about us at all. It's about serving them, getting them to where they need to go. And there's going to be that exponential wow factor, especially when they think it where it's from a consultation perspective, or even that one-on-one perspective. You're actually mentoring somebody. They're going to go in saying, hey, I'm going to get such and such from this person, whether it be Sandy, Chris, or Carla, or whoever that might be. And they're thinking one thing, but what's going to end up happening is they're going to actually come out of it even better on the other side. Because I truly believe this, like what my father taught me, is when you get into a conversation and it comes in a negative context, and I've learned this from you so well too as well, just take it for what it is and not what it isn't, and take it and make it a positive versus that negative, and leave them better off than when they came into that conversation or when they go into work. What's your thoughts?
Well, absolutely. I mean, as I told you, 90% of the conversion, if you will, is their attitude. If they want to learn how to do something better, then there's no reason why they can't. But if they don't want to, like that guy that was in the accounting department at Fraser Health, he didn't want to learn anything, Chris. He didn't want to change his behavior. Well, there was no point in working with him, because he wasn't going to learn anything, because he decided he didn't want to and didn't need to. So again, you're talking about intent. His intent was, forget it. I'm happy the way I am, and I don't need anything, whatever. Whereas the bank manager was wanting to fix things. He wanted to get better. He didn't want his tellers to be upset with him. And he had no idea that he was upsetting them. So when we talked about what he could do, he was sitting up there and paying attention and making notes. And I gave him, the syllabus to take away with him. And of course, the funniest part was what I told you yesterday when I phoned him. And then he said, it even works at home. So, it was hysterically funny. And I told him, I said, well, good for you, because obviously you figured out that there were even some issues between you and your wife, and that this could help you to make it better. And again, it's all about communication, Chris.
Yeah.
And in every relationship, I don't care if it's a work relationship, if it's a personal relationship, if it's a volunteer relationship, it doesn't matter what it is. But if your communication isn't good, then we're going to have problems. And it's a matter of paying attention to not only what you say, but how what you say is being received by the person that you are saying it to. And if you can pay attention to that, you're going to have a way better outcome. It's
Oh
just a
yeah.
matter of reading that stuff. So, people can be taught that if they want to improve their relationships and they want to get along better with their family and the people that they work with and so on and so forth. Again, you have the intent to improve, then you get some help, and the person that's helping you will give you new strategies and approaches and skills so that you can get better at it. If you start practicing those things, they'll become second nature to you, so it won't
Oh
be a
yeah.
problem anymore. But it's just a matter of what is your intention. Because there's a lot of people that frankly don't care, Chris. I mean, and it's pretty obvious that they don't. And that's pretty sad, in a lot of situations. I mean, again, Carla and I went into healthcare because we wanted to help people. And now she and I both have different businesses and are just helping people in different ways. But she's helping them to be healthier and to be able to manage different aspects of their health and so on, so that they can be healthier, which means that they're going to enjoy their lives better. And it's just a matter of what are you doing. And I like seeing the outcomes from my workshops and get feedback to find out if, in fact, people are actually doing the things that they learned. And that's the reason why I told you I like to get the specific scenarios that these people have been struggling with and not getting good outcomes from. So that after I teach them new strategies and new approaches, now they're going to try it out with situations that they haven't been successful in before, so that they'll A, see why they're learning it, and B, why it would be a good idea to start using these new approaches so that they can get better outcomes when they're dealing with their colleagues or their customers or their boss, whatever. And it's just a matter of, if you can, adults learn when they see a need. And if they realize that this is going to be beneficial to them, then they're going to start using it. And a lot of the law firms that I worked in, the big law firms, when I would come back on, to do subsequent things, people would come up, I'm still using what you told me, whatever. But, the first question I also told you, Chris, was when I started with communication and other things in these law firms, the staff would look at me and go, well, are the lawyers going to get this? And of course I would say no. Well, then what good does it do? I said, well, if you change your behavior, they're going to look at you in a different way, and they're probably going to deal with you in a different way. So it's still a win. It's just a matter of understanding how to get their attention and how to get across to them that, you're a team. They need your help in order to do their work. And if they're blaming you for things that aren't your fault, then you're going to make more mistakes. So then everybody loses. I mean, it's not the right approach. So it's just a matter of, having them understand some of these things. And when you change your behavior, that will happen. And it did. They were surprised, but it did happen. So, it's just a matter of what is your intention? And for a lot of people, they don't realize the outcome of their behaviors and of their, poor communication of what's going on. And, if they do pay attention, and then they go, well, how did that happen? Like, why, I need to learn a different way to do this, Well, then if they decide that they need that help, then we can provide it. And that's why I always have a discussion interview before I start any training, either with an individual, if I'm going to do one-on-one coaching, or with an organization, because I want to make sure that I'm going to deliver elements and strategies and approaches and skills that are going to help them to deal with the things they've been struggling with. And again, if they have the intention to fix it, then we can give them the different kinds of options that will help them to do it better. And then they'll be happy. Everybody will be happy. It's not rocket science, Chris. That's why, you put a group of reasonably intelligent people together and you give them, some kind of activity to do. They're going to come up with anything you and I can think of. And if they come up with it, they'll remember it better. So it'll be more of a retentive learning experience than if I just spoon feed everything to them. And, because of my degree in education, I understand that. I know that the more interactive a person's learning experience is, the more they're going to retain. So it's a much better way to approach the learning experience, is to get the participants, the students, whatever you want to call them, actively involved in their learning experience so that they are taking part in it and contributing to it in ways that they'll go, whoa, I never thought about that before. Okay, whatever. So again, then their intent will be different, and it definitely will. And again, we talked about this yesterday. The only thing that human beings totally have control over in their life is their attitude. And if you don't take control of that and that becomes your intent, then you're never going to have what you want. You're not going to have a happy life. It's really important to have a positive, open-minded approach to a lot of the things that we do and how we deal with people, and accept people for who they are and what they bring to the table, and appreciate the skill set that they're bringing to whatever we're doing. Because maybe you don't have those skills, and if we need them for something that we're doing, then good that we have this person on our team, and so we can leverage their expertise. It's just a matter of, again, what are you doing, and why are you not appreciating what you have and getting to know the people that you're working with, so that you can leverage their skill set to the advantage of everyone, including them. So it's just a matter of, that's why you have to get to know people that you work with. So whether you're the team leader or you're just a colleague, if you know that somebody's really good at something, so you can go to them. So Chris, you're really good at this. Could you just do this?
Right.
It's just, and how's that person going to feel? Oh, they noticed that. Yeah, I am really good at that. I can do that. So again, it's just a matter of, how are we working together? How are we dealing with the people that are our colleagues, the people that we work with? So whether you're the manager or you're just one of the team members, it doesn't really matter, Chris. You still have to appreciate each other, and you still have to listen to each other, and you still have to work together. So it's a matter of understanding, and the better we know each other, the better we can work together, because we know what people can do and what they like to do, and give them the opportunity to do that, so that everybody wins, because then they feel more confident and their self-esteem rises, and we get the benefit of what they're providing. So again, not rocket science, but it's just a matter of figuring out that there's a lot of sort of simple stuff. Not that hard. Yale's going to get it. He got it. So, it's just a matter of, what are we doing? And I think that in a lot of organizations, sadly, because the leadership doesn't recognize a lot of these things and doesn't walk the walk, they don't model the behaviors that they would like their people to emulate, then they're not getting what they want. So they're disappointed. And of course, everybody else is unhappy too, because they're not doing what they're expected to be doing, because it hasn't been explained to them properly, or they haven't been shown how to do it properly. And so everybody's struggling. Well, that's not a good place to be, not for anybody. And it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. People sometimes just need to have patience and spend a little more time with somebody who is maybe not as quick as somebody else, but who has the intent to be able to do this. So show me a game, and let me show you back to make sure that I've got what I'm going to be able to do what you want me to do, kind of thing. And, I think I told you I had a discussion with my dad, who, always expected me to, if I won a race, why didn't I break the record? If I got an A, why didn't I get this kind of thing? So then he would ask me to do things he knew darn well I didn't know how to do. And then, when I screwed it up, he'd get mad at me. So I finally stood up to him. And I think I told you one day he wanted me to mount some models on an articulator, which replicates the movement of your jaw. And I'd never done that before. So I looked at him and I said, darn well I've never done this in my life. So you want me to do it? Take me into the lab and show me what to do. Then I'll be able to do it. And in future, you won't have to show me again, because I'll already know. He kind of looked at me and I said, well. So he said, okay, let's go in the lab.
Thanks, Dad.
But, it was just, he was very hard on family. He was very much nicer to other people that weren't family, Chris, but his expectations from family were ridiculous. I think I told you, one of my first cousins, her father was my dad's brother. said to me one day, because Jackie and I were very close, and she said to me, "What if you couldn't do the things that you did? Then what would have happened?" I looked at her and said, "I have no idea." And my sister watched, and she just bowed out of it. She just figured, he's not going to know what I can do, because I don't want to get into the situation where, that Sandy's dealing with, because it sucks. And, the same thing with my brother, who was the youngest and the only boy. And he was also afraid. And I think I told you that one of the times when my parents were away was when Dave had applied to university. And for some reason, he was afraid he wasn't going to get in. And I have no idea why, because he's smart and his grades were good. But he was driving me crazy, Chris. So because I had done things with my grandfather, because he had raised thousands of dollars for bursaries and scholarships, I knew the registrar of the university. I knew him personally. So I phoned him. And I said, "I'm really sorry to bother you, but could you do me a favor?" He said, "What?" And I said, "Well, my brother has applied to the science faculty, and my parents are away, and he's driving me crazy because he's worried he didn't get in. Can you let us know?" He said, "Sure, I'll have my secretary phone you in an hour or so." And he did. And, so then my brother comes up to me, "How did you do that?" I said, "Because I know Parnell. And I just phoned him and asked him to do this for you." "Oh," I said, "because I'm tired of you bugging me, so leave me alone." Well,
Wow.
our parents were away. So, fortunately I happened to know him, and was very comfortable to phone him up and ask him to do this favor. He laughed. He thought it was pretty funny. He said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of that for you." So, again, what kind of intention? Hi, Brian. Nice to see you. I wish you were here yesterday, too. We want you more here. We like you being here.
I don't think the link on LinkedIn is working. The live stream.
Yeah, I tried that.
Yeah, and I apologize for that. I'm gonna have to get rid of Restream, everyone, and just to let everybody know, yesterday's live stream didn't go live on LinkedIn. Why it does it? I've already reached out to Restream once, and I'm gonna have to do it again. I apologize for that, because there's been some kind of issue on LinkedIn. So, Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. And you kind of already know the topic. I'm gonna say it anyways, but the power of intent. What does that say to you and mean to you?
Intent.
Yes.
It's simply creating a purpose or an intent of what you'd like to accomplish. Smaller aspects of our goals, objectives, and such. But to be fully intentional to do something is to, set out to accomplish whatever it is. In sports, it might be intentional to perform a certain way, or to have a good day, or whatever it may be. But it's something that's generated. It's not a randomness. It's not a thought. It's something that we create.
Nice. And you really make us think, Brian. That's why we love you so much, because you make us really think of something totally like, wow, intentional is like this. Well, I never thought it that way, and that's why we love you, man, because you just bring it every single time.
Yeah, I mean, to be intentional, I'm fully intentional to, or I'm committed to, right? I mean, a commitment could be another way of describing it. But for the most part, most people are pretty lousy with their commitments. Commitment is freedom. I mean, it's that simple. The two are synonymous. One means the other if you look at it, right? I mean, if you're fully committed to doing something, whether it's to have a good day or to perform or to do whatever, there are no other options, right? But most people aren't fully committed. They're got one foot in, one foot out, and they're looking behind of what's the next best thing. But if you're fully intentionally committed to something, that's it. That's all there is, and it makes it quite simple.
straightforward. It's all about your attitude, how you're going to, accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish. You don't have a commitment to it, it's not going to happen.
Right. I agree. And see, and he brought up commitment, and I never thought of that, Brian. Commitment could be freedom, because you told me choice could be freedom, but can, can they all coexist at the same time then?
Well, yeah, I mean, intentionality or creating an intention is a choice. But, freedom gets bandied about. It's a concept that could mean different things, but I mean, choice is choice. I distinguish choice and decision more so than I would choice and freedom. We have the freedom to choose, might be, but freedom is letting go. Allowing yourself to be there. Like, I'm not burdened by anything. I've committed to doing whatever it is that I've committed to do for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is. And that's all, right? I'm committed to being present for this conversation, right? So anything that takes you away from that, maybe you're not fully committed. That gets into concentration and other types of things. Yeah, freedom is commitment, or commitment is freedom. Right? It's like the Anne Morris quote, which I'll paraphrase it. How it parades around irrationally in many ways. I have to get the quote on in front of me. But yeah, what are you fully committed to?
That is
and how many people practice commitment?
Yeah. Yeah.
People who are committed get things done, Brian. People who don't commit to things, they procrastinate and they put things off, and so they don't get it done. And if we're working, we need commitment.
Putting things off and procrastinating, I mean, it depends. I mean, there's some through time people and some in time people. Not everybody operates on the same circadian rhythm, and nor do they, relate to time in the same way. There's some people who are on time all the time, right? They show up no earlier than they need to, right? It's very through time. It's kind of, I'm going to be there when I get there. And there's some people who are on time. You know them. They're there 5, 10, 15 minutes early for every appointment, right? I mean, it's how people's timelines operate for them. But procrastination, yeah. I mean, that gets into, I think we had that conversation once, Chris, somewhere along the line, that I've never met anyone who performs better under pressure.
Right.
Right. I think we mislabel the greatness. It's not about working better or performing better under pressure. That's not what it is, I don't think. But yeah.
But also when it comes to intentionality, can you also look at through the prism of your model of the world through that intentionality as well, and see how that works for you through that prism?
Well, the models of the world are simply how we filter in. It's our auditory, visual, kinesthetic. It's how our minds filter information that we get bombarded with every day. And from that information, it gets put into categories, if you will. And from those categories is how we interpret the world based on other people's decisions, by and large. But yeah, I mean, intentionality could mean different things to it. I mean, whether it be Dr. Wayne Dwyer, who talked a lot about intentions and intentionality before he passed away, or Eckhart Tolle, or you name it. I mean, a lot of these people talk about intention, but how many people actually practice intention? what exactly does that mean? Practicing trust, commitment, practicing freedom, practicing concentration. Right? We talk about these concepts as if they're something unique, but how often do we actually grow our capacity to be better at it? That's where I think it makes a difference.
You're absolutely you're so spot on, because it works best for everybody in their own unique way. No matter which way they go, they have to determine that for themselves. My model of the world will be this. My intentionality will be this. And this is, it's just like what you said last night about living the life that you love. And you started with the intent of writing your own obituary. That is amazing, the way you started that conversation last night. Writing your obituary.
It's one portion of a plan or a package that we provide through coaching. It's just one component to it of many. And it's valuable for people. But that's just, writing your own obituary is just one thing. Like I said, there's many other ways. I mean, I've done it in golf where I've written a letter from my future self to now, or you ask yourself, what advice would your future self give to you now? All different kinds of things. But the obituary is, I would have to business. It's interesting because I was on a phone call yesterday looking at a entrepreneurial platform for potentially universities, but entrepreneurs, and having access to best practices and different kinds of learnings and mentors and funding and all different stuff. And the company that is providing the services is interesting, and it's good information, and it's unique to some extent. There's many platforms like it. But nowhere in the conversation did they mention exit strategy. It's always seed money, Series A, Series B, Series C. How do you grow your company? How do you do this? How do you... Great. Anyone can start a business. It's easy. Growing a business is one thing, but how do you know where to go from there? Right? If you don't have the end or exit strategy, well, what are you working towards? So it's kind of a...
Yeah, that is a very unique perspective, Brian. And again, that is why we're just so thrilled that you're always coming on these calls with us and just like blowing our mind every single time, because there's another avenue, there's another way.
Well, there's always another way. I mean, I look at business differently. I mean, everybody wants to grow and be the next Richard Branson or the next Mark Zuckerberg or whatever. Jeff Bezos is going in space with his cool little rocket.
Oh wow, really?
The soup's in the microwave.
But it's not unique. It's unique for an entrepreneur to look at the end result. But like, how do you want it to end? Like, are you going to do this for the rest of your life? Or are you going to sell it? Are you going to grow it and then sell it? Are you going to turn it over to a family? Like, I couldn't tell how many family businesses I've worked with, and people and students whose families have businesses, and they don't really have a succession plan. And I mean, there's wonderful statistics about family businesses that, the first generation builds it, the second generation grows it, and the third generation kills it. Right? I mean, it's kind of like the third, it ends up doing one of these, growing and then dying because you get further away from this aspect, right? I mean, we've talked about a lot of people in business and in the world in general are very disassociated. There are more people who want to make an impact without actually doing anything. They want to make an impact and manifest impact by sitting on their couch. You have to have action. There has to be something done with it. Having a conversation and talking about what you're going to do is wonderful. But if you're not doing it, it won't matter. So, I know people have seen it on Shark Tank. They don't like, oh, don't talk about the end. It's like, okay, well, that's wonderful, but I'm not going to be doing this for the rest of my life. I mean, I want to get out of this and do something else, or build it and sell it, then go start something else, or retire. I mean, time is finite. So, what do you want the end of your business or life to be? And then you create a plan to get to that point. I mean, that's in layman terms, that's as simple as it is, but we don't typically do that very often.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right that when it comes also to intent, and especially I'll go back to that succession plan thing that you were just mentioning about.
Yeah.
That has to have some intentionality with that, because see, if you do it like that first generation does this, second generation does that, third generation does that, and then the business goes, then when you really think about it, the whole legacy dies after that third generation. Why would you go do that? To me, I wouldn't do that. I would definitely have a plan. And what I was taught by my father is, if you have a plan, stick with it, but then always have a backup for a backup.
Yeah, I mean, but look at how many businesses got caught holding the bag in the last year and a half, right? I mean, there are numerous coaching businesses, restaurants, and small businesses that go paycheck to paycheck, client to client, and then all of a sudden, when clients dry up, all of a sudden it's, oh, well, what do I have, right? I mean, there's been studies done. I don't know if Canada is the same way. I know many things in the United States. A lot of there's studies done of people and how much money they don't save for the future. Right? I mean, there's vast majority of people live paycheck to paycheck, moment to moment. And it's not to say that they always have a choice to do otherwise, but people rarely plan for or budget for what they're going to do. They're kind of so stuck in the moment that this is what we're doing now, and what am I going to do? Okay, 3 months from now. Like, there's a reason why wealthy people are wealthy and continue to be wealthy. There's a reason why Warren Buffett is Warren Buffett and continues to be Warren Buffett. Like, they are future pacing themselves to some extent, and they look forward to what's going to happen. They don't know, but they put in place, hey, if X, Y, and Z not changes this, we're going to buy it. If it goes there, we're going to sell it. If this happens in the market, we're going to enact that. Like, they're looking around the world, constantly planning, hey, how do I take advantage of this opportunity? They're causing it. It doesn't just happen randomly.
Nope. There has to be a plan, Brian. And people have to, to make a plan. I mean, that's why some people, when they're ready to retire, they can't, because they have no money. Because they didn't plan on how they were going to take care of themselves when they quit working. I mean, part of that has to do with your background. And part of it has to do with if you're a planner. I mean, my dad, when I was working with him, he told me that I should start making investments. I mean, he hooked me up with somebody to do it.
Yeah.
And, that way I had savings. And when Yale and I got married, we both had savings. That's why we could buy a house.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and now, I mean, we have a great financial team. And if we wanted to, we could retire tomorrow. We don't, because we both like what we're doing. So we're both still working, but we have a plan in place. And when we decide that we don't want to work anymore, we don't have to. We will be just fine. But it's because we made a plan. And included in that plan was ways of helping our kids. We educated our kids. We helped each of them buy a home. And that was all part of the plan.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, what are you doing? I mean, it's not necessarily that hard, but you do have to have a plan. And particularly, for down the road, because, we don't all work till we die. So it's a matter of what are you planning to do? And there has to be intent to put something in place that is going to help you when you decide that you don't want to be working anymore.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Again, this is not rocket science. It's practical, and it's a matter of being practical. And a lot of people, they just live on credit. They don't pay their credit card bills fully, and they borrow a lot of money. And we paid for our kids' education, and my parents paid for ours, because I didn't want my kids to start their life with huge debt. And university educations are expensive, so we planned to have the money to provide them with their education, so that when they graduated and started earning money, they didn't have to be paying back huge debt for the time they spent at university. So then they could start saving. And we hooked both of our kids up with financial planners.
Yes.
And we're very proud of our son and daughter-in-law, because they have actually paid off the mortgage on their house. My daughter-in-law was determined to do that by the time she was 40, and she did, which is pretty impressive. They have a very nice house in Toronto, and Toronto and Vancouver are two cities in Canada that have very, 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 very high real estate prices. So, we helped them buy their house, but, they've been saving up to pay off their mortgage, and they did.
Yep.
And that was pretty good. Well, they both have very good jobs, but they don't waste their money. Like when they renovated their basement, for example, they saved up and they paid the contractor cash. So we gave them a discount. They didn't know that was going to happen, but they saved up to do it because they didn't want to take out another mortgage to renovate their basement. They put a kitchen in down there and, other things. And it's just the way they operate. And it's very good. Again, they're both making good money, but they are saving and putting money aside for their retirement, and they're putting money aside to help their kids and so on and so forth. And so they have a plan, and that's good to see. But they had an example, because, my husband didn't grow up with a lot of money, and because he is an accountant and a lawyer, he had a plan. So, we just stuck to the plan. And, that way you can have a life and not be worried about debt and all that kind of stuff, because it's pretty stressful when people have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. It's pretty scary. So it's a matter of making a plan and working on it. But it's the same thing with a business. You have to have a plan, and you have to work with your people, and, keeping everybody in place, and so on and so forth. And again, we've got to work together. That's how it works. And if we can do that, then, you're going to have a business that will be successful and long lasting. But if you're not setting that example, and you're not providing an internal culture that encourages people to be creative and productive and all those kinds of things, and acknowledges their contributions and shows them that you value their contributions and so on, you're going to have high turnover, which is very expensive. And it's difficult to run a business when you're always turning over people. So it's a matter of, how are you treating your people? How do they feel about working with you? And it's like Chris said, not for you, but with you. And that's how it should be. You should feel like you're working together, and not that, you're the boss and we got to, kiss your shoes. It's a matter of what are you doing? What kind of atmosphere are you creating? Again, it's not rocket science, but it's a matter of understanding how things work with other humans. And if you can be humane and have a culture that's humane, then you're going to have employees or workers who are probably going to behave in the same way. Again, it's not that hard, but it's just a matter of understanding what you have to set up to be successful. And just because somebody has an idea for a business doesn't mean it's going to be successful, because if they're not a good boss, it's not going to fly. It's just not, unless you're going to be a solopreneur and don't need anybody else.
Yeah, there's a huge disconnect for people in business that they think that business is an idea. Even if you have a product, it doesn't mean you have a business. You might have a product, you might have a service, but having a business is different. But I think what you mentioned something, I apologize, the wording you used in terms of a plan, they don't have to be complicated. You can put a simple business plan together, or a simple marketing plan or PR plan or whatever plan. They can keep it simple initially, because you go look online and there's 1,000 templates, none of which make any sense to anyone, even the person who wrote the template. But if it's too complicated, people tend not to do it. But if you keep it really simple, of what's your product, what's your service, what's your business name, what kind of marketing is going to have.
Use KISS, bro. Keep it simple.
You don't have to. You can add to it. You can manipulate it. It's an organic document. There's two sides to a business plan. I mean, some of the best business plans I've ever seen and read tell the person not to do the business.
Wow.
Those are the best business plans, because they're authentic and they're real, and you get to a point to be like, yeah, maybe this isn't a good business. And then you get somewhere, it's like, no, we're doing the business regardless, and they put all this wonderful flowery language in and make the business sound awesome and great, but it never goes anywhere. The problem with business plans for a lot of people, though, is that once they write it, it goes right into their drawer and they never see it again.
Right.
It has to be a document that you want to update, and you have to, it's kind of a living thing. You revitalize it every quarter, you review it, or every 6 months, or, once a year, whatever it is, to make sure that you're still on track for what you're trying to do. Because as we've talked, Chris, things change. People's values change, markets change, your desires change, financial things change, economic things change. So,
your needs can change.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's always a constant evaluation to it. It's a little, though, like, once I wrote the plan, like, okay, this is what we're doing, it has to be semi-organic and flexible. I mean, if it's too static and this is what it is, well, okay, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I look at it as a living document. Like we talked about the other day, values are a living thing. And
well, that's why we meet with our financial team about 3 times a year. We sit down with them and talk about what we're trying to do and how we're moving forward, and so on and so forth. They ask us questions, we ask them questions. We used to do it in person. Right now we do it online. But anyway.
Yeah.
We still do it. And with your business, I agree with you, Brian. It needs to be something that is, not written in stone, because things change. And so when things change, sometimes you've got to adjust and adapt. And if you're not prepared to do that, you probably will fail. So it's a matter of paying attention to what's going on in the world, or what's going on with the product that you're selling or the services that you're selling. Are they still viable? Because if not, maybe you need to change what you're doing. It's just a matter of keeping up. And that's why you got to revisit it from time to time.
Yeah, and markets change, people change, customer demand changes, your skill set changes.
Yeah.
And so creating a business plan, they're fun. They're interesting. You can include as much or as little as you want. I couldn't tell you how many times I see financial forecast that looks like a hockey stick. And that's, believe me, that's a business term, by the way. And it's ridiculous. People always overestimate how much they're going to do initially, and underestimate how much they're going to do 10 years from now. It should be the opposite, right? Why would we assume you're going to grow from 1 million to 20 million in a year, right? I mean, 1 to 10 million, maybe, if you're lucky and you're able to do it and you had a 10x your income, yeah, that's possible. But there's a lot of times where people underestimate or overestimate or however estimate the market share. I mean, I couldn't tell how many times businesses have told me, "Oh, we're very conservative in our numbers." Code for okay. We're trying to make it look conservative, but I think we're going to be really great. Like, okay, but it's funny because we're in a business where you manipulate numbers for a living. I mean, that's ultimately what you do. I mean, but it's like anything. You buy a house, it's manipulation of numbers, right? I mean, you're projecting a value of something. All you need is one buyer.
Right.
Right. I mean, why does Apple get $3,000 for a computer, even though it might be a subpar computer compared to others on the market? Well, they get it because people pay for it.
Yep.
Well, that's what happens with the real estate market too.
Yeah,
it's what the market will bear.
Yes, exactly.
You've got a lot of people wanting to buy houses, and there's not a lot of product on the market, and stuff gets crazy.
Yep.
And a lot of times then things go for over the asking price.
Yep.
Yeah, well, right now the market's everywhere super hot.
Yeah. Stuff here is ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely, it's nutty. It's completely nutty. I'm not kidding you. I mean, I live in a 2,000 square foot townhouse. Okay. When one of these comes on the market, and they only come on the market when somebody dies, okay, because people don't move out of these, they sell in a couple of days. Literally, in a couple of days, they're gone. And when we first moved in here, we bought it for, about 600,000. Now they're going for well over 2 million.
Oh my word!
Yeah,
it's
crazy, Chris. But you see, part of it is that you can't replace these townhouses because newer townhouses don't have house-sized rooms, and these do. So you not only are downsizing, but you're also downsizing to the point where your house furniture won't fit. So you have to sell your house furniture, and you got to buy new, smaller furniture as well. So it's another expense in the move. And when my sister first came to our house, and she's walking around, she's going, "Boy, this doesn't look like a condo." I said, "It's not. It's a townhouse." She said, "Yeah, but the rooms are all big. We didn't have to buy any furniture. I have more furniture in this living room than I had in my previous house." I mean, yeah. And I have in my dining room, I have a table that sits 10. I have a hutch and a dry bar and 2 sculpture stands in my dining room. That's how big my dining room is.
Nice.
So, the rooms are large. Our bedroom is large. This room that I'm in is our second bedroom, but it also doubles as my office. I have a big laundry room with a sink and storage and, as well as my washer and dryer in there. It's, it's quite incredible, actually, because you don't expect to have that in a little townhouse.
Right.
And we have an attached 2-car garage. It's attached, and there's lots of storage in the garage. So, I also have a nice sized den, and the furniture from my family room in my previous house fits in my den. I've got a full-size couch and a love seat in there, and a big wall unit with a huge television. I mean, you don't find townhouses like this. So, most of us who are here don't want to move anywhere, because if you did, you'd have to go into a house again.
Yeah, exactly. So, Brian, I'll ask of you to do the call to action today. And so, what would be the call to action when it comes to intentionality? What would that be?
Take massive action on any intention that you have. I mean, I would ask a question: what's it worth to you to be able to 10x your income, to remove all your negative barriers, to be more productive, to overcome certain things? I mean, what's the value to you for that? And can you create some kind of plan or an intention to do that, whatever that may entail for you, whether that's, you know, getting more education or getting coaching or starting a business or, you know, rekindling friendships and relationships, whatever. Just be intentional with what it is that you're going to do. In action. I mean, it takes massive action. I mean, hey, I can sit and manifest all day long. Ooh, and awesome. But you know, the phone isn't going to call itself, to my knowledge. You know, and I can wait around all I want for people to call me to do business, but that's not really how it works.
Right.
You know, you have to go and take massive action, and it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, but I would say be fully intentional with what you want to do and go do it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nobody else is going to do it for you.
Yep. That's
Anyway, I gotta go, guys.
Yeah, that's a great call to action. Thank you, Sandy, so much again for joining me today. Of course, Brian, thank you for joining, and we'll be seeing you guys tomorrow on Humanity Happy Hour.
Absolutely. Have
All
a good
right.
evening.